Good to see you.
Hi, Rick. Great to see you too.
When we talked the other day, there's a certain word that stood out that I've been thinking about all week and looking forward to talking with you about. It seems to me that when someone is experiencing a challenge, whether it's whatever might be overwhelming, there is the moment. There's the moment of the challenge, the overwhelming, and there's almost always some kind of effort to make in terms of creating a shift.
Mm.
Sometimes for people in pain, like myself, we seek to shift our focus off the pain, or
Mm.
we might seek to shift our focus away from whatever it is that's overwhelming, such as that storm of thought, emotion, and more pain, and create a shift to something else to be able to move forward. And what we talked about the other day, and what we'll be talking about here, is a different kind of shift, a shift based on a word that you shared with me, and it really stood out. And it's a shift to create an opportunity. I've been
Mm.
so impressed with your book, with you, and the work that you're doing to help people shift from themselves to service. I'm just curious, why do you see that as an opportunity?
I think I'm wired somewhat to just look for the opportunity. I want a quote that sat on my desk for, I don't know, 15 years. It was a handwritten note, but don't sink to the level of the problem, rise to the level of the opportunity. And that has stuck with me to always be looking for the opportunity versus the problem. And so I get it. That probably sounds maybe odd, maybe easier to do in some scenarios than others. But I know even within my medical journey, there's certainly uh, pain points. There's pain, there's problems, there's adversities, but there's always opportunities to get to meet new people or to make a new friend or to help somebody else. And if I was focused on the problem, I would miss the opportunities that I've been blessed with over the years.
I get that completely, and that's so much in line with something that means a lot to me. In the way that I phrased it is that the level of pain must be matched by the level of intentionality, and
Mm.
that's what you're talking about is being that intentional, that whatever that level of challenge might be, whatever is overwhelming in the moment, there is that intentionality, that way to be deliberate and purposeful that you're describing. And I've found it to be so key to surviving and thriving, even in the tough moments. That's so admirable.
Thank you. Admirable. I appreciate the compliment. I think it also helps the journey to be a lot better when the focus is not on yourself and you're looking for the opportunities and the ways to help others. You can be blessed along the way instead of being focused on the problem that you're in.
I believe and I know that it's actually that focus on others that is probably one of the most powerful ways that we can be deliberate and purposeful and intentional.
Yeah.
For those of you who are joining us live, welcome. I'm Rick Cram, and this is Plan to Be Your Best Live. I'm with Diana Fritz, the author of Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. And what we're going to do is have a conversation about this sense of purpose, this sense of intentionality, the journeys that we are on, what that looks like, how to navigate it. Perhaps you're experiencing some form of something overwhelming, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, or all the other array of challenges that can come along with anything that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
If you're watching the recording of this, welcome. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you'd like to engage us with your comments and your thoughts, you should be able to. And hopefully, if the technology works right, we can see your comments. I'm going to just add a little hello and welcome you here. And we will answer your questions as we spend some time thinking about so uh, why be so intentional? Why to do that shift from self to others, and what that looks like, how to go about doing it, what that looks like. would you share both a combination of your story and even just as pain happens in the moment, challenges happen in the moment, so does resilience. And you're in a unique week full of opportunities to be resilient.
Yes. So you said I'm in a unique week. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And so you asked me to share just a little bit about my journey and what makes my week unique. Happy to do that. So if you're, watching us on video or in live, you see that I have a unique look about me. This a story around uniquely imperfect, uniquely qualified. I have my cancer journey started almost 12 years ago, and I was given a rare diagnosis of sebaceous carcinoma near the left caruncle. And that type of cancer is diagnosed in about, a few hundred people a year. It's not a broad, well-known cancer. And I was immediately sent 4 hours away from home for treatment. And it's not a cancer that has responded well to radiation and chemo. So my first year, probably had 5 or 6 surgeries just to remove the tumor. We felt like we could keep the eye, and we went about 5 years keeping the eye and going cancer free. And then it started to come back in 2019 and again in 2021. And then as we were watching closely, we were just seeing it wasn't responding to the different things that we were trying. And so I received a call one day. I was president of a company. So I was, took the call from work from Dr. C, and I was glad I locked my door that day. But he said, Diana, we've been fighting for your eye for 9 years. We have to shift. It's time to fight for your life. And that'll make all of us pause. But the tumor had started to grow behind the eye, and it was resting in the lining of the brain. And so within like 6 months after that, we were doing a pretty intense surgery, 10 to 12 hours, to remove the eye as well as the areas of the tumor that were impacting near my brain and the sinuses. And I have this nice, skin patch from my leg covering my eye at this point. And anybody that's had cancer, we understand the journey doesn't really end, right? You keep checking to see what's happening. And so, goodness, it's been over 2 years since my radiation was complete, but twice last year I needed to have a gamma knife procedure as they would see additional spots, suspicious areas on my MRIs. And this week, similar journey as well. So in fact, yesterday I had a gamma knife procedure because we saw some reoccurring tumors near the areas that had been treated, some of it sneaking towards my inner ear. And so opportunities to certainly very thankful always for the amazing medical team I have at University of Miami, and many of them I would consider friends on this journey. And also, just being able to smile and talk to people. I think my husband and I we met a patient of Bascom Palmer and Sylvester Health at the hotel Wednesday night, and she had traveled from near where I live, and we had a chance to talk with her. We had a few chances to give a copy of my book away to people, and so we just look for people to bless, and always to remember to be thankful for the care that we've received along the way.
That attitude of gratitude is both admirable, but I've found also tremendously important and effective. Just when I am in pain, one of my first go-to thoughts is to say, here's something that I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
It after the surgery in 2019 and then left with the knee in the state of trauma, it hasn't been all that easy. In fact, I think it took a few years before I actually got to the point where I could say, I've accepted this. And it's progress. It's a journey. What's your journey been like in terms of that, being able to have, even for a moment, or to really embrace that attitude of gratitude?
Yeah. No, I can remember when I was first diagnosed, I was pretty much a few months into being a single mom. of two young boys, and I went to the appointment by myself to get the results of the biopsy, even though when you get the call to come in after a biopsy, you pretty much know that's bad news. But I was determined I was going to go solo. And my dearest friend was out of town, so that's just what I did. Got the bad news. I went home, and I was in kind of in that, okay, God, why now? Like, this isn't good timing, and going through those things. And a friend somehow got into my condo building without me buzzing her in, and she knocked on the door, and she came in. She's like, Diana, just know that I've been in your shoes, and you need a hug, and I'm going to pray with you. And that helped me to reset and go, you know what, I've learned my whole life, right, that faith is important. God's going to help me through this, and that no matter what happens to me, I still get to choose how I respond. And I don't have to be a victim in this journey. And so it takes some reminders of that along the journey, but it has been just to have like a positive mindset and to fight for what I can fight for has been extremely helpful to me. But also I, have these two boys that have grown, they're 14 and 16 now. And I certainly wanted to be an example for them of somebody navigating through something positively and with faith. I did not want them to see a victim their whole life. So they were also an important inspiration to me to show up differently.
When we have adversity and challenge, one of the opportunities that I found it's helpful to recognize is, just as you're saying, is we've got an opportunity to model for
Yeah.
others. We're leading ourselves, and in effect, we're leading others through this too. How
Yeah.
how have your boys responded?
They've responded pretty well. I think it's uh, my surgery in April 23 was probably the most intense moment for them to think through. Um, mentally for me, I had people say, Diana, are you ready for this? You're only going to have one eye. And then I'm going, well, the alternative isn't much better. So I'll take one eye. Um, but I have a whole lot, I have a lot more time of prepping for it. For them, the youngest, the first time he saw me in the hospital, he was a bit freaked out and panicked.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My oldest was like, Mom, you look like you're ready for Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. And he had some humor. But that summer when I was doing radiation, they came with me for a week. And my youngest son in particular, he went with me to multiple doctor's appointments. He got to meet the doctors that took care of me. He got to see what the proton radiation machine looked like. And I asked him as I was, writing the book and finishing up, with some of the chapters, I said, are you still afraid as you were that day? And he looked at me and he's like, no, because I've met the people that take care of you and I know that they care.
He,
And
he's
that like is really important lesson for me. I get it's hard sometimes to think about taking your children. I think he was 12 at the time to meet some of your doctors, but it made the biggest difference for him.
I can imagine so, and I understand that there are so many questions and fears, and by bringing him in to the experience, he saw things that took some of the fear away, the fright away,
Yes.
uh, those questions that didn't have answers just yet, and maybe the only reaction, since there were those questions without answers, was fear, and
Yeah.
that helped demystify, so to speak, for the lack of a better term.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in there. That idea of being prepared. I remember, and one of the reasons why it felt important to me is I'm writing the book, and I created the 8 paths of intentionality. The first one is called prepare, because
Mm.
we will experience something new. People say when they come to me, I'm not ready for this. I'm not prepared for
Mm.
this. I found between the first three surgeries and so forth later on, realizing, all right, I wasn't prepared, but it's never too late to become able.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
You know, it's interesting in terms of preparing for. There's a whole lot of elements to prepare for, right? Surgery is one thing. Waking up afterwards is another. The recovery process is another, and then how you just interact with others. Because
Mhm.
depending on your adversity, people may not see it,
Yeah.
right? And so mine's visible right now, so people see it. Whereas you can relate, people probably can't necessarily tell. You look normal, right? And so we have different expectations of people, and I think it's helped me. I'm getting sidetracked a little bit, but helping me to remember to extend grace to others because I don't know what's happening on the inside, right? You can look at me pretty easily and say, okay, she's gone through some stuff, right? But but you still don't know what it is that they've gone through. But my preparation, personally, whether it's medical, just life, right? I um, strive to get up every day around 5 a.m. and do reflection and prayer and meditation time, preparing for my day. That's something that's just a part of my rigor, regardless of if it's an easy day or if I'm walking into surgery. Yesterday, I had to do it a little bit earlier than normal, so a lot of my prayer time was when I was probably lying on the bed waiting for my IV to go in.
Yes, yes,
But
I
and
get it.
it's not, I think our preparation is oftentimes has to be continuous. It's not once and done. We kind of need to stick with what our intention was throughout the day because it's so easy to get distracted. Like this past week, just alone, it was one thing I was preparing to have MRIs and a procedure, but I was also getting hit with, well, the insurance isn't approving this, or, all these different things are happening. So you're constantly standard life or getting ready for something medical, getting hit with all these things that are trying to steal your joy and to steal your peace. And you've got to keep sticking with it. You're going to get distractions all the time. You have to be committed to stay focused on being prepared and remembering what your intention is as you walk through the day.
Seems to me you just described wonderfully a definition of resilience. It is again and again and again.
Yeah.
Uh, it might be, and it's interesting. I was impressed with one particular poetic part of your book where you talk about the helping people go through what the adversity is, and then to do that shift from self to serve. It reads something like, and maybe you can share it with us: one eye, one
Mm,
life, 1 year, 1 month, one day, one moment, and
yeah,
it's moment by moment, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah,
It is, and I think I'll often use that, one matters as well, right? Because I think,
yeah,
and there's many times where we may think about shifting from myself to go help somebody, and then we get stuck with, well, but it's not going to impact that many people, right? Or it's not big enough, and I don't, doesn't matter, right? If you get prompted to help one, like go help one because one matters. And I can go like one eye like matters a whole lot, right? And one matters. And I think that is another scenario probably that popped out in the book was just like we often think um, one's not enough, but one can create a ripple effect that otherwise we would have missed out.
that's what our that's one of the ways in which we have a lot in common is that sense of purpose too. Even if it is just one, each one matters. Would you share with us the story of when you were getting care, you were at the hospital, and you had some time on your hands, and you asked the doctor, "How can I help?" Can you walk us through
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, certainly. I was preparing for my 7 weeks of radiation down in Miami, which is 4 hours from my home. and I was not working. I was on disability leave, which all makes sense. But I'm just not somebody that's used to having time on my hands, and so I reached out to my doctor and said, my radiation's in the morning. I have all afternoon. How can I help you? How can I serve your patients? What can I do to help you? And initially his response was, Diana, you just need to get well. I said, oh, okay, but you've got my number. And then a few weeks later, he called and he said, Diana, I have a patient that needs to undergo a similar surgery, different type of cancer, but very similar surgery, and he's struggling. Will you talk to him? And I said, absolutely, I'll talk to him. And so that started like that journey of me being somebody he could call and say, Diana, can you talk to this patient? Because I will tell you, there's very few people that have gone through a procedure to have their eye removed. Particularly, there's many people that only have one eye, but a lot of times it's just the eye that comes out, and it could be a quick procedure versus a 10 to 12 hour procedure that is much more impacting than the eye being removed, and the recovery is longer. And you just have a lot more questions, right, around what life's going to be like. And so I didn't have that person to talk to. I have great doctors, but the doctors do the procedure. They don't know what it's like to wake up after it. And so that was just been an opportunity for me to serve multiple times to help people undergoing a similar surgery to walk through it before and after, right? I'm available for a phone call.
So within you is this innate motivation and willingness to serve, to help others. What did you experience when you first went in and talked to that other patient, to spend some time, maybe listen, answer his questions? What was that like for you?
It was that one was on the phone, and I listened for probably a good 10 minutes just to his backstory, to all the different things. And, he had some tough experiences before he went to the University of Miami in Bascom-Palmer. So I just, listened to him's story, and then he paused and he's like, okay, so tell me your story. And so I talked through how thankful I was, right, for the team I had, for how they helped me navigate through the different situations. And he was still hesitant to trust the team. He was in a mode of thinking, well, I want him to stop at a certain point. Like I'll be under, but I don't want to. I forget exactly what it was, and so I just said, friend, I don't know. I it doesn't sound like to me you fully trust this team, and because I never in a million years would I've thought about telling my team of 4 surgeons that if you hit a certain point, don't do X, right? They have studied for years to prepare for me. I want them to do what they think is the right thing for me to do. So he had been hesitant prior to that day to even go forward, and he did end up going forward with this surgery. And I was, I was honored to speak with him, and also just reflective of the trust and the appreciation that I had for my medical team at the same time.
Yes. That I can nerd out on words, and that word of trust is something that's been very rich, very potent for me, because since the last surgery, each next thing I say yes to, let's give it a try, but it doesn't work. And it's been nearly 6 years of trying many new things. And so trust, there's this paradox in a way to, all right, I'll go forward with this, I'll give it a try, and I'll be open-minded about it. I need to turn over every stone, every possibility. But at the same time, there's this distrust that I try to put that on the shelf. And that's one of the challenging aspects of all of this. There's trust, and then there's this willingness,
Mm.
it seems to me. But you were willing to talk to him.
Yeah.
And others, you were willing to write the book to try to connect with others who need some encouragement. How do you encourage others to make that shift to from self to serve?
Um, I mean, uh, I suppose my biggest way to encourage is to do it myself.
Mhm.
And when I was um, going through radiation, I was able to come home on the weekends, and I always have enjoyed serving coffee and donuts at church on Sundays. And they were like, "Well, Diana, you can take off because you're going through radiation." And I was like, "No, that's
Yeah.
not an excuse. I can still show up and serve." And so, if anything, it shows people that there's very little excuse where we can't serve and help somebody. Um, and it's easy to give an excuse, but the excuses aren't often valid. So that is, I strive to just be the example to do it. And then I think a lot of times people are limited by serving because they don't think they're worthy, even with the smallest things, right? And so I find that if I ask and look for people and say, "Would you be willing to do this?" They'll look at me and like, "Oh yeah, I would." Like, um, there's like this gap between just because they're not raising their hands doesn't mean they're not willing. They just may not think they're worthy or qualified to do it, and so that's been something I've been working through. Is just, okay, God, who do I ask? Like, who just needs that prompt to step in and say,
Yes. So one of the things I've been writing about is to recognize that you do have value. Each one has value. And certainly a challenging experience can shake your sense of value, can shake your sense of self. Some people have come to me and said, "This is so overwhelming. I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know what to do about it." And there's a connection with also our less value. So let's re-anchor in identity and values, and then just try. And actually, I found out of the values, we can get a step or two closer or go in the direction of, well, let me try this and experience it
yeah,
and see if this, if it's not only just a matter of serving, but it's a matter of what that act of service in the moment returns to you.
yeah,
There's one of my favorite quotes by Booker T. Washington is, "If you want to lift up yourself, try lifting up someone else."
yeah, yeah.
Are there any quotes along those lines that are meaningful to you?
There's a great proverbs: "He who refreshes others will be refreshed." That's one that I um, think about often as well.
That's wonderful. Proverbs. Any by any chance do you recall the actual verse, the
I
number?
believe it's Proverbs 11:25. It may be. I
Yeah.
can look that up. I know it's an 11.
One of the reasons why I like that is because that's part of resilience. It is a refreshing,
Yeah.
again, to go through, be in that moment of pain. Pain happens in the moment, but so can that refreshment.
Hmm.
Had a conversation yesterday with my pain management uh, counselor, and also with Deb Creer, who I'll have on in very soon, maybe even in 1 or 2 weeks from now. And one of the things that we experience is when we focus on the service, when we talk about resilience, when we talk about refreshment, even if we're just sort of reflecting on here's what works for me, then we
Hmm.
start to experience it. If I
Yeah.
think about, I'm going to, I know what works for me, for example, is that attitude of gratitude,
Yeah.
or encouraging others, or just even thinking about a word and having a conversation with someone, like contentment. The more we focus on it, the more we experience it.
Yeah.
So that refreshing one, I'm going to add that to my list.
Yeah. No, that is the more yeah, what we focus on is what,
Yeah.
makes a big impact on our time
Yes.
and
Yes,
how we
indeed.
feel. I've had many, people after I've had the opportunity to speak come up and say, "What, I thought, you helped me to see that I can use what I see as an imperfection, right? It could be I have a disability, or I have autism, or I stutter, or that type of thing. But you've shown me that I can use that to connect to people that have the similar um, what handicap or adversity that I do, and I can help them. So if I can embrace it, I can help somebody else. Like, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. And
Absolutely.
do you find that it's not just embracing it, but it's embracing it again and again,
Hmm.
over and over again?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely for me, it's over and over again because the look doesn't go away. So I spend time with chapels in my current role with preschool children. And so even though the first week I shared with them what happened to me, every week, what happened to your eye? Is it coming back? And so you just kind of smile, but it makes me go, you know what? I need to write a children's book because I love the questions children ask me. They are
Yeah.
much more creative. So
Yeah.
I love the questions they ask. So I just go, no, I am
Yeah.
thankful to be here with you. When you see me, be thankful you have two eyes, and I'm going to keep being thankful I have one.
Ah, yes. Yes. There's that power of gratitude.
Yeah.
How has your faith walk been through this?
Um, I have, of course, our adversities test our faith, right? But been important to me to stay with my routine of how I, spend time with God each morning and to fight for time with Him and to remember that He's with me. I think, many people will look at me and say, well, Diana, you're a nice person. Why does God let things happen to nice people? And I'll take him to the verse in Romans, right? God didn't promise that all good would happen. He promised that He would walk through us and there would be good in it, right? And so I've seen lots of good in it, right? I will, in my book, there's a lot of pictures. Because I wanted to be transparent and real, right? This is what stuff looks like, right? Or a radiation machine, or what I look like when I woke up from surgery. But you could look at me now and think I look pretty bad. I'm going to show you a picture of 2 years ago and tell you, look how far I've come, right? But that's like perspective, right? And I also know that He's with me every step of the way. And there's certain verses that I recite or things that I can remember to um, help somebody else. I have a ring on my finger, which you probably can't see, and it is
Yeah.
engraved "Be Still" on the ring. And I had that ring engraved the year I turned 40, the year before, the few months before I found out I had a cancer diagnosis. Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Um, we all need to remember that, regardless of the adversity. But that's just been a thing for me. There's times where I've shown up for surgery, an intense surgery, and I walk in to check in, and they're like, Diana, it's not been approved. And I go, what? Like, I've had all this leading up to this, and I would look at my husband and say, well, I knew I didn't want to have this surgery. I don't think God wants me to have this surgery today. And he'd be like, no, I'm pretty certain God wants you to have this surgery. And within minutes, right, the approval would come through. So,
You mentioned that a very common question of why did God let this happen, or why me, or uh, personally, I believe those why questions are irrelevant
yeah,
for a couple of reasons. I believe they're the wrong questions to ask, even though they're completely human, completely normal. I've asked them myself, but after decades of pain, I found that what imagine there might be an answer or some possible answer, and it's going to be wrong. For
yeah,
example, God didn't make this happen or let this happen. It's happened, but it's what the Lord is able to do is work through us to turn it for good.
yeah,
So when that question comes up, I like to share that perspective. There are questions worth asking and some questions worth just letting them lie.
yeah. Yeah.
What's next for you? What's your, you have another book? You mentioned the book for kids. That's a wonderful idea.
Yes, yes. A children's book version of my book is important to me. I just have my sketch started on how I make that happen because they bless me more than they realize, but I love their curiosity, and so did Jesus, right? Jesus loved the curiosity of children.
Yeah.
And so that's important for books. But I also enjoy doing workshops and speaking because that's just as an opportunity to add more value to people and help those that are stuck with whatever the adversity is to move forward and to find the lesson, find the win, and keep moving.
I've got a couple more questions for you, but let me take this chance to say, how can people reach you?
I can be reached on LinkedIn. You can easily find me, Diana Fritz, and this is the picture of me. So, no, Diana Fritz with one eye, you'll know that's me. I also have a website, grituiuq.com, and you can certainly go there and fill out a form to make sure that you're on an email list and connect with me.
I'm really impressed, and it makes so much sense, the leadership work that you do, and I'd love for you to elaborate on what grit stands for and why. You are an example of someone who does what we all need to do, especially when we are facing anything challenging. We lead ourselves through it first and foremost, and then also lead others through it. Um, what does grit stand for?
Yeah, no, I will share with you what grit stands for. So the G I look at as grace. So we often our natural tendency is to extend more grace to ourselves than we do to others, and so grace is just to remember, right, to extend it to others as well as ourselves. The R is for resilience, and that is applicable in leading ourselves to make sure we're resilient, as well as when we're leading teams and people around us. We need to show them what resilience looks like and how to get back up and keep moving forward and learn from the road bumps along the way. I is for influence. I believe very strongly that our leadership is how we influence others. It's not a title that drives whether or not people are going to respect us. It's how we influence and how we earn respect. And then T is trust. So building trust is so important and critical, and we do that in a multitude of ways. But I found the most impactful way for me is to just be a leader that serves and seeks to help others. That has been a way to build trust.
I'll come back to the R in grit and resilience, but I'm curious regarding influence in the work that I've done for communications, leadership
Mhm.
development. It's all about communication,
Yes.
or at least it's much more than that. But at least if we think of communication as perhaps its fundamental purpose is to drive positive change, I, I've been a student of communication strategies and skills in my course of helping leaders drive positive change with their organization, with their teams, or where they are in the marketplace. Elaborate, if you would, on your thoughts regarding influence.
Influence and communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite quotes around communication is from John Gordon: when there's a lack of communication, negativity fills the gap.
Yeah.
And I've watched that a lot in my career, just as a developing like executive and leader, and have worked to figure out how to incorporate, to over communicate, and to be sensitive to the different styles of communication, which is spelled out in DISC. With being, you have the direct, you have the influential that want a lot of information and engaging, and you have the steady one that wants to know, okay, how does this impact everybody? And the C, which is more conscientious, right? Why, what's the reason, the logic, all of that. And just, to be willing to take the time to think about what it's like to be in the shoes of the people that you're communicating to, and then, to communicate in that form or that fashion. And there's times, right, where you just need to stick to a steady communication cadence that you're going to use for an organization and then give feedback on it. I have learned great things like doing quarterly feedback surveys with my team on communication. So rate how we're doing, right? Top down, across teams, within your team. And depending on your rating, what can we do better? And so sometimes I'll do that in a survey format. Sometimes I'll do it in person. We're just, you don't get to hide behind the keyboard this time. We're going to talk about it. And here's how we're going to talk about it. We can talk about any problem you see, but you've got to have a solution to come with it because we're not here to vomit problems. We are here to understand the problem and talk about solutions together. And because I want to move forward, I don't want to stay stuck.
Yeah. I found that there's the 3 steps of resilience: tune in, plan, and be your best. That's integrated across the plan to be your best whole approach and those 8 paths of
Yeah.
intentionality. That phase that you're describing, that time of planning, it's done both in the moment, but in a way it transcends time. There's so much goodness that comes from it because you're planning for the future and working together, and it can be such a everything from strategically helpful to also creating a greater bond between those who are involved with the planning. Any particular things that you've witnessed that reflect that, or do you see something in a certain way when it comes to that planning phase?
I think that it's trying to think of a good example or story to tell. I know I spend a lot of time around core values with companies and working on identifying what those are. And then often they're identified at a higher level, but then collaborating with the team on what it looks like. So, how is it lived out? How do you reward it? And then spending time like training and reinforcing. And so, I think whatever the topic is that we're planning for, to remember that it's not a one time event. It needs to be continuously reinforced as well as reflected on, right? Like, what was our plan? How are we
Yeah,
doing? What did we miss? Like, how do we need to learn from it and keep moving? Um, Core values is an area I just have a lot of passion around because so many places it's on the wall and it's not lived out. And it would be so much more powerful if it were lived out. But that takes movement and a greater plan.
right. Have needs for your clients changed over the past several years?
Absolutely. I mean, we've past several years has been a lot if I think through it. So, I mean, prior to COVID, a lot of people were face to face. Then we hit the COVID timeframe where everybody was working remotely, except for people like myself who were on site at COVID sites helping to train first responders. The majority of the people were like not seeing people every day. And now we're trying to bring people back in to seeing each other. And so, certainly, that mix of how we do work has certainly impacted um, how to help clients understand how to engage, right, or how to build relationships. Because it's
Mhm.
a lot harder to build a relationship when you're a full virtual company than if you're in person. There's just something about meeting somebody first in person, even for a day, right, will help you tremendously to work together virtually. So that just the dynamics of work have changed. And then I think we've also become a lot more focused across our nation on what we're against instead of what we're for. And
Mhm.
so that often makes it harder as well to find unity and work together as a team and to find where we have common ground is really important.
Yeah, yes. Being together makes all the difference in the world. One particular client, they hadn't been together for over 5 years. And
Mm,
what the process of getting together and doing what you do, doing what I do, one of my favorite quotes from or comments that came afterwards was, "This galvanized us. This really helped us
mm,
get become strengthen even creating and then strengthening the bonds between us is
Yes.
so important. Diana, how about trust? The word trust. What are you seeing regarding trust or the lack thereof?
Um, well, it's there's probably a lot of lack and there's all of the above, right? I think there's some organizations where trust is high, and then there's others where it's low. It really just depends. I know in an organization I was working with not too long ago, it was just interesting to see the dynamics of how low trust was getting, even though they were attempting to communicate. There wasn't the opportunity to ask questions, or people weren't asking questions. So, those are kind of red flags I look for and go, okay, we're not allowing them to ask, or we're allowing them to ask and nobody's asking, right? Like, that's a concern, right? So, we've got to figure out a different way to get to where the people are at. And that can mean, okay, we're going to do small groups and have coffee together. That can mean, I know I learned a lot just coming in as a consultant, doing disc communication workshops with groups of people from different departments. I intentionally didn't want one department together. I wanted a mix of the people across the teams, because that helps me to see where the silos are and where there is lack of trust when I'm pulling people together from different departments to do something together. Um, and you often have to mix it up when you can tell that teams aren't, they're not one company, right? They're not one team. You have to figure out ways how to mix up what you're doing with them so that you can start to break down the barriers.
There's so much wisdom in that. And how about now for the R in grit, resilience? Why include resilience in grit?
I mean, I think that it's one of the most important elements of um, leading yourself and leading others. You're going to hit a whole bunch of tough times along the way, and you need to have the resilience to pick it up and keep going. And if you don't, if you can't do it with yourself, then you really aren't going to be able to lead others to do that either. And resilience is, getting back up again. It's learning from the
Mhm.
failures and the things that didn't go well, and just realizing that that's just how we fine tune and how we get better, and not giving in.
Imagine someone's listening right now and they're questioning their own resilience. I believe everyone has their own unique resilience,
Mhm.
and it's something that you've gotten to, or any of us have gotten to a point of resilience based on a variety of factors, life experiences, how we were raised, how we're approaching the current situation. If you were to encourage someone right now to make choices to strengthen your unique resilience, what would you
Mhm.
share?
Mm. Um, I would encourage them strongly to take time every day to reflect and take time to just like pause. There are, great books you can read. Bible has been a great book for me to read in regards to just resilience and sharpening my saw and getting better. Um, I would gauge that a large part of society today has a hard time setting aside time to pause and quiet without this thing. And just scrolling and looking at what everybody else is doing, which probably isn't even real anyway. And instead of just pause, right? Let me focus. How does this feel? I'm a journaler. I've been journaling for years. I can remember people would come to me, probably at a job 20 years ago. Diana, I'm having a hard time with this or with this person. I want to give up. I want to give in. And I want to go have this conversation. And I would just look at them and say, okay, before you have the conversation, I want you to write it out. I don't care if it's in a Word document, it could be in your journal. Write it out, get it out of your head, and then write out what you really think you need to say. Because if you don't put in the space, you're likely going to say what you don't really want to say because you're reacting versus responding. and you need to pause. And if we're just constantly reacting, I don't know that we're really very resilient, because we're really not stopping enough to pause and learn and really understand what we're dealing with.
It's a wonderful example, again, if there's a person with a challenge, a form of pain or some pain points, therefore match that with a greater level of intentionality, just as you describe. I'm with you. I found it makes all the difference in the world to take time to process in a way that is both applying assertiveness to what's going to be communicated and how it's going to be communicated.
Yeah.
The idea, even with respect for yourself, respect for your need and right to say something, but also respect for the other person, who you're going to communicate with, to the point of even respecting however they feel compelled to react,
Yeah.
to let that be part of the process. You're doing amazing work. You are a gift and an amazing person.
Thank you.
Curious, is there anything that you wanted me to ask you during this conversation that I haven't asked yet?
I don't think so. This was a good conversation. We got to talk about lots of things. I'm on my,
Yeah.
a day post gamma knife, so um, I could tell what that is, but
Yeah. So how would you describe it? What is your now like right now, if I may ask? And you don't have to answer if you don't
Yeah.
want to.
No, it's fine. I every 3 months I do MRIs of my brain, and we looked for suspicious areas. And I went about a year without any suspicious areas, and then last week we noted at least one. Yesterday they treated three, they said. Um, for 7 weeks when I was in radiation, I always walked by the sign for the gamma knife and went, I wonder what that is. And then last year I got to figure out what that was. But it's a very targeted form of radiation that they can use for some elements, some areas, like just depending on the sensitivity. But um, pretty much, you go in the morning and you get fitted for your nice helmet for the day, and they pin it to your skull here and back here,
Wow.
and give you some medicine to relax. You're not fully out, but you're relaxed. And then they do an MRI again just to make sure they have the equipment as targeted as possible. And then you have the procedure, and then you wake up, you get the helmet taken off of you, and you leave the session with a big gauze wrapped around your head, like you've been in a
Mhm. Mhm.
like you've been shot in the head or something. But I rode home on the train yesterday with my gauze wrapped head and just keep smiling at people. What I think is really interesting about the gamma knife is they will tell you there's potential side effects. Like I could have a side effect from this one of numbness on the right side of my face, but it's a 3% chance, but it could be like 2 years from now, which I find
Really?
that so interesting, because I fully expect, you're so used to, I think, a side effect being like right away, like right when I wake up from surgery, not 2 years from now, it could pop up. So I find that really interesting.
Yes. That is fascinating. Our bodies are fascinating. Our brains, the interconnectivity of it all, the way it reacts and so forth. It's just amazing.
Mm.
Funny you mentioned relaxing. It's been on my mind a lot. Part of this experience for me is it's very difficult to relax. I never know when the next shot of pain is coming.
Yeah.
So I was journaling about it yesterday, thinking about what else might I add to my resilience toolkit to help me relax. Well, there are over 25 different things in my toolkit to do that. Just curious, what's in your resilience toolkit that helps you relax?
So my morning quiet time. I also love to go to the beach at sunrise. Like that's an important time for me to just be able to go and sit there. I also am somebody. My physical health is really important to me. So working out is. I can tell. if I haven't worked out that day and I feel some tenseness, like that's when I want to go, okay, I'm going to go work out. It could be a walk. It could be my husband gives me all kinds of strength training exercises to do in our garage. He has that built into a gym, but that is something I have grown sensitive to do, to go, okay, I just need to work out, right? I need to get some of the stress out. And while I'm working out, I'm often listening to a podcast or some uplifting music, and those are things that just help me to relax. The other piece, I think, that is tied to something, from a career perspective, I know when I've been in moments of stress with a project I'm working on or that type of thing, is just step away and go help somebody. It just changes your perspective just to walk around and say, hi, how can I help you? And then you have a different frame of mind to walk back into your situation.
I'm right there with you, especially working out. For the past few years, I would actually be more in the mode of, all right, I need to create that shift. So I'm going to work out, even if it's for 90 seconds or 3 minutes. Of if I go from the focusing on what's overwhelming to now I'm focusing on the reps. I focus on the number. I'm kind of a numbers guy. I do, for example, the presses with weights in each hand 57 times because I was born in 57, or
Oh,
70,
okay.
76
Yeah.
times because I graduated in 76. But then I'm breathing and I'm focusing on something else than the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and now I've been in more of a mode, and I'm trying to get back into it after a couple of, especially exhausting weeks of working out almost every day. And that's a time when, likewise with music, uh, or a talk, and it's completely healing and a time that's free. Um, Movement, I've found, and that breathing is so important. So important. Um, Anything else regarding relaxing? Anything else in your toolkit that you might add?
I'm going to add on about the working out element, because I think there's many times in my life where I've been like, I'm too busy today, I don't have time. And that is often one of the few things in one's day where you're actually fighting for you, right? You're
Yeah.
taking time for you. And so I have learned, as you mentioned, could be 90 seconds, could be 10 minutes, could be 15 minutes, could be an hour, right? But it's a time that you are clearly investing in you. So don't allow all the excuses to sink in, because you need to. And what I do today for myself, for my physical health, right, is going to help me tremendously. Like later in life, people will ask me, well, Diana, you still have cancer and you take care of yourself. I'm like, yeah, but what would cancer have done to me if I wasn't eating well and if I wasn't physically fit? Like, what would it have done to me? And I want to fight for what I can fight for. So I can fight for my mental well being, my spiritual well being, my physical well being. I can fight for all of that. And that
Well,
helps me to
yeah.
keep the mindset that I need to navigate through the adversity that comes my way.
For anyone who's watching, for those of you who are watching, those are powerful words. That's a powerful message. In a way, it's extending grace to yourself, and you're worth it. You're worth it.
Yes.
Diana, thank you so much. This has been a powerful hour. There's been so much wisdom. If you wanted to leave one or two nuggets of goodness for people to hold on to, what would you share?
I would just remind people that God sees value in you. Let Him show you what that value is. And take time to just identify the adversity you're dealing with and learn from it and move forward so that you can go help somebody else move past theirs.
Right, right. Thank you so much for that. That's golden. And I want to thank those of you who are watching. You can reach out to either one of us. I'll include information below regarding how you can talk to Diana or myself to share any further questions that you might have. We will answer them. And I want to thank you, Diana, especially thank you for being with me. Plan to be your best live again next Friday, every Friday at 3 Eastern. I'm sorry, there I did it again. Actually, I keep, that's the Sunday time. It's Friday at 12 noon. On Fridays at 3. Let me say this. On Sundays at 3 is now Take Heart, Encouragement and Resilience in Action. It's a free gathering, Zoom, 3 o'clock Eastern on Sundays. It's just started again. I had a Take Heart group for a few years, about 14 years ago. And I found that this is a time that so many people need to come together. And like we were talking about before, what we focus on, we experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we share the experience of the joys of encouragement in 3 ways: receiving the encouragement of others, finding ways to strengthen how you encourage yourself, and the joy, the gift of when you encourage someone else, it lifts them up, and yet it flows right back to you and helps you shine all the more and strengthen your own unique resilience. Again, that's Take Heart, Sundays at 3 Eastern. Thank you so much, Diana. I'll look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you. Take care, Rick.
You too.